Visit Sailrite.com for all your project supplies, tools, and instructions. In this tutorial video, we'll show you how to make a binnacle/wheel cover kit from a Sailrite kit using Sattler fabric. This cover features a zippered opening with a flap to protect the zipper from the elements.
Close up that zipper and protect it from the sun. Beautiful fit. Easy to remove. And with that zipper, we can easily put it over our binnacle.
Pattern material is included in the kit so that you can pattern your particular shape and size binnacle to fit it perfectly.
And zip it up.
You can order one of 3 size kits from the Sailrite website. Let's get started. The first step is patterning of your binnacle. We'll show you how to do it now.
This video is going to cover how to pattern a binnacle cover for a sailboat, but if you have an oddly shaped application where you need to make a cover that fits fairly tight, this video is also great for that. So the first thing you need to do is consider where you're going to have each one of your fabric panels. And basically a fabric panel seam will land on a spot like this on the outer edge. So this here in the middle will be one whole pattern coming down. Then on the back side, as you can see, we'll have another piece of fabric that'll be the backbone of this application. Then for the actual wheel, we'll have a pattern along the front. So 3 patterns will do it for this type of application. The first step for the binnacle cover is taking measurements to cut the pattern material to approximately the size that you need. So we know that this wheel is 36 inches, measuring straight across it. I'm going to cut a pattern material with at least 4 inches extra over there and 4 inches extra over here. Then I'm going to cut the height of it all the way to the deck with 4 extra inches up here. So we'll have this pattern. For the second pattern, the one that goes all the way down port and starboard side, we need to measure at least 4 inches out here. So that would make this pattern about 26 inches with 4 extra inches on each side. Then we'll measure to the deck, and these are approximates because but having a smaller pattern makes it much easier for patterning. So we're going to go over this all the way down here, and the length of that one will basically be 120 inches or so for that pattern. Then for this one, we're just going to go big by 4 inches here. You get the idea, all the way down to the deck. Strapping tape is used to help prevent the double-sided tape from sticking too much to the stainless steel and not coming off. We were going to basically stick it down here with double-sided tape, and I'm just going to stop it right about here and cut it off. The pattern will go all the way to the edge of this. You can either stick it on the front here or the side, but basically on both starboard and port sides, we're going to put double-sided tape here. We're not going to put any here, it's not necessary. So that's enough for this one. Then what we'll do is we'll take our double-sided tape that's included in the kit, and we're going to put it right on top of the strapping tape to make it easy to pull it off. Break it there. Then we're going to go up here, go on top of the strapping tape. Doesn't have to be exactly centered or anything. And then break it on this side. There we go. For the actual wheel, I'm going to go down not all the way to the deck, but basically we're a little bit below the center line, and we're going to put it right on top, and then we'll put double-sided tape on this. So we're going to go all the way down a little bit past the center line and cut the strapping tape right here. We're going to peel off the transfer paper, revealing that double-sided tape, and I'm going to go all the way here. Then this is our pattern that we cut for this one. This is Durascrim pattern material. There's no right side or wrong side. We're going to just basically start at the top and baste it down, making sure that there are no wrinkles in it. You could put the strapping tape on the front, but the reason I do it on the top is that we have to pattern for a second one as well after this. Now what I do with my feet down below is I actually step on the pattern material to make it go down flat. So I usually do this. Yeah, that keeps the wind from blowing it. And then you can reposition, because you want this to be nice and flat like this. Look at that. If the pattern material is too big, then what happens is the wind blows it around and it's harder for you to pattern. But we have a pretty calm day today, which is not very common for Indiana. There we go, perfect. Now we're going to take our marker. We need to mark the center here. You can see through the pattern material, so I know exactly where the center of the wheel is. Okay, then we're going to come up here, and the simple thing we're going to do is we're going to put the seam right in the middle, and I'm just going to do dash marks indicating where that is. So we're going to go all the way down and all the way on the other side as well. I'll show you what we do when we get to the bottom down here. So now I'm past my middle position. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just indicate a line going like this that kind of goes down at an arch. And this isn't completely accurate, but as long as you're past about 6 inches from the center, which we are, this will make the cover fit nicely. And I don't have to do that on the other side because we can just kind of mirror this for that. So just continue marking all the way to at least down here on this side, and I'll show you what's next. Now it's important to mark the center location, and you can see the center is right about here. Does it have to be exactly in the center? No, it doesn't really, because this is just a matchup mark, but we're going to put a mark here and we're going to call this center. I'm also going to label this SOUT for starboard out. If it were a different thing, you can label it right or left. And then this is POUT for port out. Okay, so, and then I'm also going to put a F on this to indicate the front panel. Okay, it's not a bad idea to come down here at the deck and mark exactly where the deck is. Doesn't have to be too long, just something like that. We won't have the fabric go all the way to the deck because it's usually not good to rub against the deck, but we'll have it an inch or two above the deck. Since our marks are right in the center of the wheel and we have the center position marked, it's easier to take this pattern off and do the next one, but you need to make sure that the matchup marks are the same. So what you can do is you can lift this up and you can transfer the center mark on top of your strapping tape here and even onto the double-sided tape like that, and that way you have it. And if you get any on the stainless steel, it comes off pretty easily with a wet rag or McLube. So we're going to peel this off and save the pattern, and we're going to try to keep the double-sided tape on the wheel. So I peeled off the transfer paper to this portion up here, and we're going to pattern this middle section here. We can also just mark the center up here right even before we put the pattern material on there. That way we can use it as a reference for the second one. And we're going to take our other piece that we've cut, and this one's bigger because there's an odd shape to it. So if you just think, oh, I need to do it this width, it won't be big enough. That's why we add the extra 4 inches. So at the center of this, and you can tape these pieces together. If your Durascrim isn't long enough, you can actually tape it with just packing tape to add pieces to it. Well, the wind's picking up. That's not good. Okay, so there's the center, approximately. I'm just going to stick it up. There's plenty on the left and plenty on the right, like that. And we'll pull this over. It is easier with 2 people, but oh, and make sure your steering wheel is locked. You don't want it to move as we're doing this. See what I mean by this? Sometimes you have to maneuver the fabric so that it actually goes on the wheel, so you have plenty of fabric like that. So we can, let's see here, we've got enough to reach the deck, so we're good there. I got to get off of this and move it down. There we go. That should give me plenty. So I'm going to work on getting the wheel down first. So notice I'm concentrating on sticking it down so I have plenty for the actual wheel first, because when you get to the side you're going to find that you don't have as much material. Okay, so now I have enough material. I'm going to come over here. We don't have it in the right spot yet, but we will. We're going to peel this up and get it to be nice and flat. That's looking good there. Got to pull this out, kind of base this to it, and then we're going to work on getting these wrinkles out. So that's basically it. This side, if you look over here, this side actually looks pretty good. We still have some tweaking to do to the wheel, but that's easy to do. So let's just go work on this wrinkle over here. So I'll peel it up down here and just pull out the excess fabric or reposition the pattern until we get it looking nice and tight. Still got a wrinkle here, so just got to keep working this out. There we go. Nicely done there. That looks pretty good. Okay, once we're happy with that, we're going to take the transfer paper off of this. This is the bottom part that we need to stick to it. And we're going to pull it so it looks good and baste it down like that. That looks great. I'm going to mark the deck here. Okay, that gives us a good reference. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mark the back of this. That's where I want my seam. So I'm going to do it kind of roughly like this. We can straighten it if I'm a little bit crooked. Obviously we need to go all the way to the deck there. Now what I'll do up here is we're going to go right on top. We need to mark the center location. And we're going to put dash marks right on top of the tubing. Now we have an obstacle here.
Okay, here we have a slight obstacle that bumps out and I mark around it, but it's not required and should not be done. Rather, I should have continued my line all the way down as I'm doing here, following the tubing and that table. Now, we didn't change it, and it still comes out nicely. We'll talk about that here, showing a preview of what it looks like finished.
We originally patterned for this obstacle that's right here and came in like this. After we completed the cover, we decided that it probably would have been better just to have the line come straight down and just let the fabric take up the excess.
Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, let's get back to patterning that top panel.
You can see through the pattern material, so I already marked the center, and I put F here because I put F over here, so I know exactly where those two panels get put together. Then we're just going to mark it just like we did before, right at the top of the rail. That way the seam is exactly the same as the other panel that we took off. Here's where I taped a piece on to extend the pattern material, which is quite common. We're going to go all the way past the middle position, right like that. So now that we're past the middle position, I'm just going to mark a line going down like this, almost to the deck, which should be about the same as what we had on the other one. All right, so this is port, so pout, and on the other side, sout.
In this illustration, we show the front pattern in yellow. We used a marker and marked from the midsection of the wheel to the deck. Let's rotate this to a port side view. These red dash lines represent our marking on the front panel. The second panel, the top panel going from starboard to port, shown in green here, will continue on at the midsection of the wheel with a straight line all the way to the deck, shown in red dashes. When we take this pattern to the loft table, we're going to add 3 to 4 extra inches on the port side and also the starboard side ends of this middle panel, just to make sure it matches up with the front panel. We'll show that at the loft table.
I'm putting strapping tape back behind my line because we're going to leave this pattern on and re-pattern for this back panel. If you put it on top of your lines, sometimes it actually takes the marker off. That's why I like to put it behind or in front. We're going to do this all the way down this side. The reason we're doing this is that we have a little bit of shape here and we can pattern for that shape. Yeah, we're going to trim off all this extra. That'll make it easier for patterning. Just don't trim off where your lines are, and leave at least an inch so that you can add for seam allowance. So our final pattern material is pretty easy. We just put it on up here to that, where's that double side tape? Oh, there it is. It's packed there a little bit. So I got to put it on there, there, and we'll get this stuck on, and then I'll show you what to do. Okay, I'm going to mark the deck down here with this pattern. Don't have to go all the way, just enough for a reference. Now what we want to do is we want to be right on top of those lines. Okay, I know some of them aren't perfectly straight, and there's a little bit of slop in this, but it's not a big deal. This is a cover. If it fits super tight, it's hard to get it on, so don't worry about a little bit of slop. Okay, we're going to come up here. Now the other side has that shape to it, so let me just do this right here, right on top of those dashes. We're going to mark the center so we can have a reference right on top of those dash marks. So I want to follow this. So see where that line is that we have? So it'll take that little shape beautifully like that. We're right on the seam allowance and go all the way down. Okay, I marked out and pout and out. And we're going to take this off. We're going to take off all the pattern material, and it's important to take off the strapping tape right away, because in the heat and in the sun this can become stuck even more. But because we put strapping tape on, that double-sided tape comes off beautifully, as you can see.
We're done with patterning. The next step is cutting our Sattler fabric to size.
This is the first pattern, and I'm going to cut a 1/2 inch approximately. Doesn't have to be exceptionally accurate. It's a cover down the side of it. So we're going to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance on each one of these patterns. And this has some obvious shape to it, so I'm following that. But anywhere where it's supposed to be a straightaway, like here, I'm just going to kind of fair it out like that.
1/2 inch is added everywhere except for at the bottom edges.
At the bottom edge, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right at that bottom edge. We are going to add a hem, so this will bring it off of the deck just by cutting on that line that we struck on the deck.
Everywhere else we'll cut, we'll be adding a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but not at the bottom edges.
Okay, remember we marked one line on this side and we didn't mark it on the other, but first I need to cut up here the same thing at the deck, and I'm just going to go long. So I've cut out this side. Here's our center. So there's my center mark at the top, and there's the wheel, so I'm just going to strike a little line going all the way down. That should be our center. And now what I'm going to do is fold it in half, since I didn't put a line on that other side, and we're going to mirror it, so like this. Right on that centered line, like that. And then we'll come up here and, oh, notice the wheel's a little bit off here. I'd rather have the wheel right than anything else, because the wheel is going to be a center, so I actually can just do it there rather than using my center line.
Don't mark it.
Yeah. Then we can just cut up here. Don't worry if the deck looks like it's off. It probably has a pitch to it anyway. So now we can use our dash lines. And now we're working on the last one. This is the bottom edge. We're right on top of that line there. Then we're going to go up this line, fair it up about a 1/2 inch away from it. It should be straight. And we'll cut this one out at a 1/2 inch around the perimeter, just like we did the other ones. I've nested all of the pattern material up so that the sout and powder's up Not that that matters that much as long as you just keep everything the same. And we were able to fit it in here like this in our cloth usage. So that gives us the best cloth usage, and we can use any extra for other things of the Sattler 100% solution dyed marine grade acrylic that comes in the kits, and we have all kinds of colors that you can choose from. So for this middle panel, the one between the forward and the aft one, we're going to go a little bit longer here just so that we have extra, because sometimes what we find out is that when we drew the line on the side, there's just not enough fabric. So I'm going to say it'd be safe to add 3 to 4 extra inches. So we're just going to extend it out in that regard, like 4 inches or so following the line here. And then we'll strike a line here and cut there. We're using the Sailrite Edge hot knife with a precision cutting foot and blade that's sold separately. It comes with a standard R blade, and we can just cut right beside the pattern material. So we're just going to cut around the entire perimeter of all of the pattern materials like this with a hot knife, and that'll prevent the unraveling of the fabric. Now what we did with the extension on this side, we're also going to do on the other side for just this middle panel. All other panels will be cut right on the line that we did when we did patterning. So this fabric is extremely UV resistant. It'll stay nice and bright, whatever color it is in the sun. And it's water and stain resistant, and it's breathable. So it's excellent for a binnacle cover like this. So we're going to cut all 3 patterns like this. When I reach the edge of the table, since I'm using sandbags, I can just move the pattern carefully and it won't shift. So there we go. Okay, before you take your pattern off, mark where the center position is. I'm using a soapstone. You can also use a chalk. And then I'm going to mark out our S and P. That means that this is the outside edge. And we also marked an F here, just for reference. I'll put an F right there. This is the center position. This is marked F. And here's the center position here. And we'll do it the same with that one at the center position.
The panel that covers the wheel will have a covered zipper installed. We'll be showing you how to do that now.
So at the center where the circle is, I'm going to go up and I'm going to mark it 6 inches here, because this is where we're going to have our zipper stop, which should give us plenty of room to put the cover on. So at that, we've already struck a line in the center here. We're going to take a hot knife and we're going to go through both the Sattler Marine Grade acrylic fabric and the pattern material all the way up to that line. It's kind of nice that you can do this. At this top, I'm going to cut a T because we're going to create a very small hem here. I'm not going to go very far, and I am going to use a hot knife after I cut it, but this just makes it easier for me to determine exactly where the T is. We are going to reinforce this area. So now I'll take a hot knife and I'll carefully kind of melt those edges. So I'm going to put this in here like this. Before I get the trigger going, now I'm going to make the blade hot, like that, and we'll do the same thing with that one. This is the outside surface. You can tell by P and S. We're going to flip this to the inside surface, not that there is an inside surface to the Sattler fabric. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my clear acrylic ruler, and on that mark, or on that line, I'm going to put it on 3/4 of an inch, okay? So I'm on 3/4 of an inch, right down there, because we made that nice and straight. And I'm going to use a pencil because I want a crisp line. Nobody's going to see this. So we mark down here and mark all the way to this side, and then I'm going to mark 3/4 of an inch on this side as well. So now I'm going to put basting tape. This is the 1/4 inch that's included in the kit, all the way down, both sides, pretty close to the cut edge. Okay, so we're going to do this on this side as well. I'm going to use the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler to adhere it down well, because acrylic is stain and water resistant, and so is glue resistant as well. You can use a heavy object for that as well, and that will work. Peel off the transfer paper, and we're going to fold a single hem to the back side to that line. So if your notch isn't deep enough, you'll need to make it a little bit deeper, which it looks like I need to go a teeny bit more, unfortunately. I didn't go enough. That'll do it. Now we can fold right to that line, and we will need to crease it well because this is a very small hem and it won't stay stuck unless you actually push down with some heavy object like that ruler. We're going to do that same thing to this side as well. At the bottom edge, we need to stop our zipper 2 inches up. So I'm going to put a line here and here to indicate that we need to stop. This is on the inside. Hem is facing up. Now I'm going to take my zipper. This is a number 10 zipper, continuous. This is included in the kit. And I'm going to put 1/4 inch very, very close to the flanged edge. And we just need to do it so that it has enough zipper to go past this edge by about 1 inch and all the way down here. So I'm going to cut it to that size now, so I know exactly how much I need, which is right there. And we're going to put this on this side and also on that side. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel off the transfer paper. We are going to use a flap system with hook and loop. But I'm going to base this down and then we'll separate the zipper. So make sure your panel's flat. Again, go about 1 inch above that. And if you've done it right, it really should just fall right in the center on the edges of that hem that you created, which ours is. So that's perfect. And we need to stop at 2 inches. And I'm a little bit long. I should have started on this end, so I'll just cut it off here. That's good enough. Out of some of the scrap material, I cut a 3 inch by about 1.5 inch strip for stops at the end. And this is our scrap material. And I put some double-sided tape on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this in half like that. Then I'm going to put double-sided tape on this side like this. We'll do the same thing with this one. And I'm going to peel this off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the teeth and the end like that, and I'm actually going to lift the tooth up and put the folded part going up. This is going to fall in a hem here, so it doesn't, this edge can be left raw and it doesn't matter how far it goes, and I'm just going to fold that right over like that. We can even cut this off if you want. So now we're going to separate this all the way. Hopefully it's going to stay basted in place as well. And you can pin it if you'd like, if it doesn't stay basted, but I'm going to do this. And if I need to, I can rebaste it again, all the way to the top. This is our slider, and we need the puller to be facing down because we're working on the inside of the material. And sometimes it's better just to take off some of this because it hasn't been sewn down, and just do it like this. Make sure the ends are even. And there we go. And I'm going to put it down just about like that. And then we'll rebase this like that. Now we're going to have to move that when we sew, but we'll show you how to do that at the machine. I'm going to flip this over. So we're working on the outside surface now. And we are going to put hook down one side. Doesn't matter. I'm sorry, we're going to put loop on it on one side. So this is my loop, and I've cut it so that it goes a little bit past this edge up here, and it stops almost midway of our stops down here. And I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to put double-sided tape on both sides of this because this is a little bit thin double-sided tape. So here and here, both edges I should say, not sides. So I peeled off the transfer paper, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it so that it's halfway in that area, and I'm going to do it so there's just a little bit of canvas showing, and no more than this, all the way to the top. We cut some scrap to 3 by 3 for reinforcement at the top, and what I'm going to first do is I'm going to do 2 of the edges directly across from each other. And we're going to hem this ever so slightly, just really small hem, like 3/8 inch. Here and here, I'm not measuring. Okay, then I'm going to put some double-sided tape on this edge, and we're going to fold this. Doesn't matter if it's the center, but we're going to fold it towards the center and anywhere down like that. And then I'll do it here, and we'll fold to that point where we've just folded that one. So, like that, and like that. Okay, let's crease it well. And this is going to go down here as a reinforcement for the top of the application. So I'm going to baste it to that locale. Putting double-sided tape on all sides, it kind of helps hold it together as well. And then make sure you cover that, and we'll go right like that. Now we can take it to the machine. So I'm going to start up here, but what I want to do is I want my stitch to fall right there, right at the edge, very close to the hook, or the loop, I'm sorry. So I'm going to move it up here, and I've got my needle to the left, and I will do a little bit of reversing here. And then we're going to sew right down this edge, just like this. And we should be catching the zipper and the hem and the loop at the same time. So you want to go fairly slow. And I should have scrolled this up a little bit, but I'll just force it in the machine. To be really slow, I'm going to put the worker bee in the maximum slow, the minimal speed position. And now I can just really crawl along. When I get to my slider, I'm going to bury my needle with it coming up slightly, lift my foot, and then I can push the slider out of the way. Now make sure everything stays basted as you do this. Lower the foot, don't forget to lower the foot, and then continue to sew. And I'm going to sew through the stop like that, and then I'm going to do some reversing. A little bit of heavy reversing there. Okay, that side is done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pull it back, and we're going to put a stitch on this side of the loop. Now we're going to sew across the top of this reinforcement patch, and I'm going to move my needle to the right so that it's close to that edge, and we'll do a little bit of reversing here. And we're going to come to the corner where the loop is, which is right about, I'm going to use the reverse lever to bury my needle at the spot I want. Now I can pivot on that buried needle with my foot up, and I can sew down this side, making sure that I'm sewing in my loop. No reason to do reversing there. And that's all there is to it. Using some more scrap Sattler fabric, we're going to put it along here, make sure it's at least 5 inches or so. I'm going to have the flap stop right about here, but I want to add enough for a 1-inch hem, so I'm going to go there. And then I'm going to have the flap stop here, and 1-inch hem approximately there. So now what I want to do is I want to use a clear acrylic ruler, and obviously I want to strike a line that's straight, because that line is not straight. And we're going to make this 4 inches, 4.5 inches, I'm sorry, in width here. Down to there. Whoops. And 4.5 is right. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Right there. And we're going to cut this out with a hot knife. As soon as well, we don't even really need to use a hot knife because all the edges are going to be on the inside. So I'm not even going to use a hot knife. I'm just going to use scissors for this. We're going to fold right on that, not on that mark, but at that mark, approximately. Doesn't have to be perfect. And we're going to do the same thing to this end over here. Double-sided tape goes on both long edges after those hems are created. Okay, I peeled off the transfer paper on one side. We're just going to fold about a 1/2 inch here. I'm not going to measure. I'm just going to try to stay consistent. And then we're going to crease it well with that Serrat canvas patterning ruler, like this. Then we're going to take off this transfer paper on this side, and I'm going to turn it around so that I can fold up, because I like to fold up. rather than down. And then I'm going to fold right to that edge, okay? All the way down, and then we'll crease it well. We're going to put double-sided tape almost right in the middle of that, where those two join. And then we're going to put hook on top of this. Peel off the transferred paper. The hook goes so that it's very close to the raw edge, but not going over that edge, because we don't want it to be exposed to the sun. It doesn't do as well in the sun. Okay, now we're going to take it to the machine. We're going to sew this on both long sides of the hook and loop, doing some reversing at the top, a little bit of heavy reversing, and my needle's to the right now. And then we'll do the other side in the same manner, reversing when we reach the end and the beginning again. When you're sewing hook, you may notice that your stitch looks really wonky. That's because the hook has basically a hard thing that rises up and the thread can't find its home. But if you look at the outside surface, it's gorgeous. So you may want to do this, you may not. I'm going to basically measure 3/8 inch over. This is 3/8 inch, and I'm going to slightly score it with a pencil all the way down its length. And in doing this, I can make sure that I'm going to be sewing through the zipper as well, because this thing has to be put on pretty accurately, like that. I'm going to put double-sided tape along this edge of our zipper flap, and the hook will actually hold it in place as well, but this is just another precautionary way to make sure everything stays how we want it. We're going to peel this off, and we're going to baste it with this edge basically being flush with that top piece. See how it's almost perfect? And right along that edge that we struck down, like that. Now we still have to move this. Well, we probably don't have to move the slider, to be honest with you, because this, well, we probably will. Like that, all the way down. Now we'll take it to the machine and we're going to sew really close to this edge. Make sure your stop is still folded nicely, which mine is, and we're going to put it in here and the needle's in the right position. I'm going to start sewing onto this flange, but I'm also going to reverse back into my stop. Okay, so now I've got pretty good reversing there, and we're just going to follow this all the way to where the slider is, being careful to stay very close to that edge. We probably should check and make sure that we're sewing through the zipper on the underside too. So I'm going to bury my needle, and then I'm going to go back behind the machine and lift it up. Oh yeah, we're in the zipper's flange. You can't see that, but I can. I'm going to scroll this up a little bit to make it a little bit easier to sew, so it goes in the throat of the sewing machine nicely, like that. So I can feel my slider right here, so I buried my needle with it coming up slightly. I'm going to lift my foot. We do have to peel up with this hook and loop, so I'm going to carefully peel it up. We can always rebaste it down, which looks like I'm going to have to. But this is all sewn, so all I need to do is just basically push that past. There we go, now we're past, and then I'll rebaste this down, and we'll lower our foot, don't forget to do that, and continue to sew. That's all there is to it. When we get to the end, we'll do some reversing. So right here, when I transition, I'm going to do a little bit of reversing there just to make sure it stays down, and then when I get to the end of the stop or the reinforcement area, I'll do some reversing there. We're done. Looks nice.
Now that the zipper is installed, it's now time to join the first of our fabric panels to it.
So the first piece we're going to sew is the one with the F, sout and pout. So this F would go down like this and be matched up to that match-up mark there. Now I really should cut a little slit in there. So there's a match-up mark here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a small triangle in here. That way I don't have to look for that match-up mark on the wrong side. And then I'm going to do it here too, even though I am going to see one of these. Like that. Get rid of that. Okay, now these get matched up just like this. And we're going to start from the center and sew one direction. Obviously it'll be this direction since it's going to fit in the throat of the sewing machine better. Okay, we're going to sew a 6mm straight stitch, and we're using Tex 90 thread that comes in the kit and a size 20 needle. Match-up marks are on top of each other. We're going to line up the edge. We're not using double-sided tape for this because this is really pretty easy without it. So we're just going to start someplace there, and I'll do a teeny bit of reversing here. Okay, and now with this panel underneath, what I want to do, sometimes I take my hand and I put it underneath here like this, and then I use that to kind of help guide the fabric. And I have my magnetic guide at a 1/2 inch, so I'm sewing a 1/2 inch from the edge. And this has some shape in it, so you want to match up the edge as you sew, especially directly across from the needle. That's the important area to match up. And you don't want to sew any wrinkles in this. So see how I'm using this hand underneath to kind of push this fabric towards the magnetic guide as it gets closer to the needle. This is pretty easy to do. And then we're going to flip it and sew from the other side. So when I get to the end, I'm going to do a little bit of reversing. I'll show you what it looks like at the end because we're going to see if the ends match up exactly. They usually don't. And that's not a big deal if they don't. We're coming to the end here, and you can see that they're not the same. We included for some extra in this panel, and for good reason, because we would have been short if we hadn't done so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here where the one stops, and I'll do reversing right at that end there. So right there. Okay, now what we have to do is we have to take this out and we have to flip it, because we got to sew from the middle going the other direction, and it's easy to do this direction as well. So you do have to flip it over so you don't have the bulk of the fabric going through the sewing machine. Like that. And it's really the same procedure. We start near the middle position, actually on top of the previous stitches. Lay this all flat. There we go. So I'm going to go over the stitches by about 1 inch or so, and we're going to do just a teeny bit of reversing here. And match up the edges and sew in the other direction, following the exact same procedure. And we are along with the other panel that we made long, so we're good to go there. A little bit of reversing. Now we can do a top stitch or not, but a top stitch makes it more professional, so I think we're going to show how to do that. This is the seam allowance on the underside, and we want that to go up away from the wheel cover. So basically to starboard and port. I'm going to move the magnetic guide because that's in the way. And we want to splay the fabric out on our first stitch to create the semi-flat filled seam. I'm going to use the middle foot here as a guide, leaving the needle in center position so that my stitch falls within my 1/2 inch seam allowance. And sometimes what I do is I actually fold the fabric. I can feel the seam allowance going that direction, which is what we want, so we're going to sew through it. And I'll do a little bit of reversing here, and everybody's going to see this stitch, so you may want to turn down your worker bee power pack system if you have it to minimal speed so you can be really precise about this. That's up to you. And we just sew along here. And when you stop to make adjustments, bury your needle, and then we're going to straighten out the fabric a little bit because it's a little going crazy on me, and push it in the throat of the sewing machine, splay it left and right like we're doing, and sew. So take your time doing this since everybody's going to see this stitch.
To that assembly, we will now be joining the third and final fabric panel.
This is the outside surface, and this is the back piece, middle. This is the outside surface with out and pout on it, so that means outside surfaces face each other, just like this. This gets matched up, and we actually sew this in the same manner. We start at the middle, I'll sew down this side, matching up the edge, and then I'll flip it, and I'll sew down this side, matching up the edge. Okay, the centers are matched up, outside surfaces are facing each other, And we'll put it in the machine. We'll start at the center position, sewing a 1/2 inch from the edge, do a little bit of reversing. You've heard this all before. We'll just sew going around this corner because that's pretty much the major shape that we're gonna encounter in this whole thing. So I just want to move this over as it comes in line with the needle, like that, which kicks up the back end, as you can see, which is not uncommon because the fabric is taking some shape. Now I'm pretty much to the straightaway, so all I have to do is I'm going to bury my needle so I can move my hands, is line up the edges as we sew. All right, you get the idea. Okay, as I come to the end, I'm like, oh no, they're not matching up. But remember, we added extra over here, so it's almost going to be perfect here. We're going to take that to the table and take care of that after we're done sewing this. So now we're done with this side, well, almost. Right here, we do some reversing. Now let's flip it and sew from the middle section like we did on the first panel. Now you can see here, because of the shape, the fabric wants to basically split. What you can do is you can cut some relief notches or either little triangles, and that allows the fabric to basically relax there at each one of these locations. So I'm just going to cut a few little slits because that's easier for me where it wants to take this turn here on this side. Don't go deeper than your seam allowance, and also on this side a little bit. To put a top stitch in this, I'm going to open up this zipper, and it has that hook and loop, so we have to open that up too. And that'll spread this out a little bit more because this is a little bit tighter area. And then we have to turn it right side out. So the seam allowance for this, I'm going to have go to port and starboard. So basically the side panel, this is the back panel. So this one's going to be stitched here, and this one will be stitched here. We're going to work from the end over here. I can feel the seam allowance going to the left. So we're going to put it in the machine. And you do have quite a bit of bulk in here, so you're going to have to take your time and do this yet again. We'll do a little bit of reversing. And then every time I make adjustments, I want to make sure the needle's buried. Like even here, I need to get the fabric to go underneath that throat. Like that. There's some sort of tools back here. I got to get out of the way. There's my needle threader. Okay, good. Bury the needle, push the fabric in, splay it left and right. We're going to show it to you when we get up to the top, where the top is basically rounded. Now the one thing you want to do is you want to make sure you don't sew in any of this excess fabric on the underside. So I'm putting my hand underneath and I'm feeling for extra fabric under here, and you can actually sew it in over here. That just won't ruin the job, but it'll make it a very big headache. So especially when you get up here towards the top, you just want to make sure that you're only sewing through that seam allowance and nothing else. So if you have to stop every 2 to 3 inches, stop with your needle buried and check. So we're getting up here to the curve, and you can see it's a tight space, and all I'm doing is going slow and I'm spreading out the fabric. Now I'm going to try to get these wrinkles out by putting my hand underneath here, making sure there's no extra fabric, pulling left and right. There we go. So I've got a nice basically takeoff here. And then I'm going to bury my needle. I'm going to push the fabric, check to make sure that we're sewing through what we need to. That's basically it. When you get to spots like this, sometimes you can only sew an inch at a time, and that's quite all right with a top stitch that has shape like this. I'm basically at the top edge now. It's pretty easy. All right, I think you get the picture.
Next up, we'll hem the bottom edge.
Okay, here's the excess on this one panel, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a straight edge, and let's see, right here it looks like it goes across here. Here, this one kind of goes up at an angle, but that's because there's a zipper. So see, if you went like this, it would actually be straight. So all I need to do is basically just go from there to here. We're going to do a double hem here, so we're going to cut that off with a hot knife, and we're going to do the same thing to this one over here. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're putting the 1/4 inch seam stick on the inside at the bottom edge all along here. We're going to create a 1/2 inch hem here, well actually a 1/2 inch hem and then another hem. So it's going to be a double hem when we're done. I am not going to measure. I'm going to peel off the transfer paper. What I'm going to do is just estimate a 1/2 inch, about like that. And we're going to do this all along this edge. We do have to use something to crease it well because it's not going to want to stick. Or you could use clips too, or pin it. Double-sided tape is going to go on top of this hem, and we're going to complete our double hem after we go all the way across. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold up to here. This is almost a 1 inch hem, which should keep it off of the deck nicely. Again, I'm not measuring, but if you'd like to measure, you can. Here there's a little bit of shape, so it wants to do something a little strange here. Okay, we're going to put some clips on this, basically just to hold it in place as we take it to the machine and sew. Here, this wants to make a crease. If anything, I want the crease to be in the hem, because the hem's going to be on the inside and not on the decorative, and not on the outside of the fabric. So I'm trying to just make a bump there rather than in the fabric. I'll straighten that out at the machine. So we're going to put some clips on this and then we're going to sew it. Okay, so we have it, the needle in the left position. I'm going to sew on the inner edge of this, and I'll do a little bit of reversing. This is really thick here. Let me move this clip. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the magnetic guide there because the hem isn't perfect, but we want the hem to look perfect from the outside, so because I'm sewing with the hem up. So I'm just going to use the magnetic guide instead of the edge of the fabric, and hopefully this is going to hit it everywhere. If our hem is too small, then I'll just increase the hem a little bit so that we hit it. Okay, here's where we're going that little bit of a wacko spot here, but I think it's going to actually work okay. Yeah, it is.
Why is there a wrinkle there? Well, there's shape in that location, and the fabric has to take up the excess shape as a wrinkle. Don't worry about it. Sew through it.
I'm going to try to flatten out this fabric on the front side and kind of feel it. Pull this fabric a little bit so that we get it as flat as we possibly can. All right, we're going to sew all the way to the other end, and we'll do some reversing there. We're using the guide, not the hem. While I'm sewing this hem in, I'm going to put a Say Right tag in. They're available in white and black, but black looks better for this. And I'm just going to put it in this hem. I know this is on the inside of the cover, but hey, it says you did it. That's what it says. Because Say Right is DIY.
Our Binnacle wheel cover is now complete. It's now time for fitting.
Okay, our cover is complete, and with that zipper, we can easily put it over our Binnacle.
For detailed sizes, be sure to check out the Say Right website with these part numbers, and you can tell exactly whether these kits will fit your Binnacle. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified of new tutorial videos when they become available. Check out the description below for a full materials list of what's included in the kit and the tools that we used in this video. I'm Eric Grant, and from all of us here at Say Right, thanks for watching.